My next Patreon question is from Diver, who wanted me to compare two infamously disliked preschool shows. Out of all the shows on PBS Kids that I grew up with, I found that the two most publicly despised are Barney and Friends and Caillou, both of which I did watch when I was younger, but now find don't hold up too well. My question to you is, which was the better show and character and why? What could have been done differently in each so they wouldn't be so hated? When I read this question the first time, my immediate thought was that Caillou is better, obviously. But then I did a little bit of revisit of the series, and now I'm not so sure. I don't think Caillou is necessarily a bad show, but the central problem does seem to lie with the main character. Caillou is mostly depicted as a child who complains and whines about rather trivial things. Even something like his younger sister wanting to play with him, he makes a big fuss about. Rosie ends up being the most mature one in the family. And most of the time, she's probably thinking, what is your deal? I'm 2 years old, and I'm somehow handling myself better than you are. There's one episode titled Rosie Bothers Caillou, which is a pretty libelous title, as she barely does anything. In one part, all she does is try to sit next to him, and he throws a temper tantrum. Maybe the show should be all about her. Hashtag justice for Rosie. I do find it funny how nonchalant the parents are. Most of the time, they're just, oh, he's 4, he can handle his own problems. Parents of the Year. Thankfully, not all the episodes revolve around Caillou's behavioral problems, an attempt to show off his imagination. The show is also well animated and does have a storybook-like appearance that's at least pleasant to look at, and there's a nice looking color palette. Is there much educational value? Not really. It's mostly just a series of little stories focusing on the day in the life of this young boy and his family, and I think there's always a place for these day-in-the-life preschool shows. Caillou just needed a better written title character. I did look up some parents' reviews, and a lot of them complained about their children imitating Caillou's behavior, so I can definitely understand why the series is especially disliked among parents. In regards to Barney and Friends, there is at least some amount of educational value. Admittedly, the lessons taught on the show did not rise above the level of say please and thank you, and look both ways before crossing the street. But hey, those are certainly important lessons to teach young children. For those looking for more sophisticated lessons, there's still Sesame Street. The series primarily existed in this schoolhouse run by this overly chipper dinosaur, and people's main bone of contention does come from Barney. I don't really blame people for that. Barney is kind of annoying. There's little to no change in his personality, and his whole shtick gets old extremely quickly. He just has the same dopey expression on his face the entire time, and the same applies to his dinosaur companions. The Animaniacs parody of Barney was a pretty spot-on takedown of the series, and how irritating that dino is. The show's creators admitted they did intend Barney and Friends to be simple with nothing challenging. They were particularly intent on using music to tap into very young children's developmental levels. I think there's a way to have an overly positive and happy-go-lucky main character of a preschool show that does not grate on the nerves. Look at Bear in the Big Blue House. Bear, along with the other characters on that show, were often portrayed as happy and singing songs and having a good time, but in a way that felt inviting and welcoming. Everything about Barney just strikes people as artificial and overly saccharine. The children on Barney and Friends were also criticized for being too chipper and willing to listen to whatever Barney said, but they at least had the ability to show more than one facial expression and emotion. The show was also where Selena Gomez, Demi Lovato, and Debbie Ryan got their start, so many of the children definitely had talent. When I did a video a while back criticizing the Barney's Great Adventure movie, I got a few comments from Barney fans who appreciated the messages taught on the show, and I think that's wonderful they got something out of it. Overall, Barney is probably a better show when it comes to educational content and teaching simple lessons to young children, while Caillou succeeds better as a story-based program and showing a child living his life, as flawed as he may be. If they had better titled characters, the reception would probably be more positive. Let me know your thoughts on these two shows, which you think is better, and thank you for your question, Diver.